It always starts quiet. Way too quiet. Nobody clocks it at first. You're this tiny 7-year-old kid staring up at a parent who's coming apart at the seams. Maybe it's the booze. Maybe it's rage. Maybe it's that dead, checked-out silence that tells you they're here physically, but the rest of them is long gone. And right there, in that tiny moment, your brain should still be learning cartoons and crayons. Something ancient snaps into place. If I don't keep this whole mess together, nobody will. That's the moment a kid disappears. Not on the outside, on the inside. They smile extra so nobody asks questions. They cry less so nobody gets irritated. They become experts at reading the room before they even open their mouth. They turn into the emotional thermostat of a house that's always one spark away from blowing up. They morph into these mini adults long before their mind is even built for it. And the world? Oh, the world loves it. You're so mature. You're so responsible. You're so strong. Yeah, strong for who? Strong at what cost? This is the invisible grief of kids who had to grow up too damn fast. And today, we're ripping the lid off what actually happens inside that child's psychology. Because this stuff doesn't fade with age. It doesn't go away. It shapes everything. Your relationships, your work, your self-worth, the way you let people treat you. And if you don't understand what went down, you'll keep repeating the same survival patterns that saved you back then but are quietly destroying you now. Let's break down what's really happening developmentally. When a kid ends up carrying the emotional load that the adults should have handled, psychologists call it parentification. It's when the child becomes the caretaker, the peacekeeper, the therapist, the protector. And let's be brutally real, this doesn't just mess you up, it rewires the nervous system. Because when a child is forced to regulate everybody else's emotions, or even their own, the brain shifts into something called hypervigilance. You stay on high alert. You walk on eggshells. You learn that love is basically a deal. If I keep the peace, maybe I'll get safety in return. You learn your needs are too much, and their needs are an emergency. So you vanish, not physically, emotionally, and in your place grows this high-performing, quiet, helpful version of you that the world praises. You become the good kid, the overachiever, the therapist friend, the one who never asks for a damn thing. And you wear that mask so well, you eventually forget it's a mask. But underneath, something still hurts, something still aches. Because that younger version of you, the one you shoved into a mental basement, didn't disappear. They're still in there whispering, why didn't anyone protect me? As you get older, the consequences get more complicated. You might turn hyper-independent, refusing help, keeping distance, never fully settling into love because it feels unsafe. You might go numb during good moments because joy feels foreign, unearned, even threatening. You might grind non-stop because productivity became the only currency you ever felt worthy in. And the worst part, you might not even realize you're still running on survival mode. Because when chaos is your childhood baseline, your nervous system starts treating dysfunction like it's normal. Stillness feels off, like a setup. Peace feels suspicious. And love? Love feels like a bill you'll eventually have to pay back with interest. That's the psychology of a kid who had to grow up way too damn fast. It's not just sadness, it's complex trauma that quietly rewires how you see the world, and more importantly, how you see yourself. And you might wonder, why would any kid take that role on? Simple. Kids will burn their own identity to the ground just to stay attached. They'll trade authenticity for belonging every time. Because survival isn't a choice. It's biology. A child will abandon themselves long before they ever risk losing a parent. That's not weakness, that's raw instinct, pure intelligence. But here's the tragedy. The very thing that saved you back then is the same thing trapping you now. A lot of adults walking around today, high-functioning, successful, put together on the outside, are really just neglected inner kids running the show. We overachieve to earn love. We stay quiet so nobody leaves. We take care of everyone else while secretly hoping someone, anyone, would look us in the eye and ask, "Are you all right?" And that fantasy, the one where someone finally notices you're not as strong as you pretend, where you get to fall apart and be held for once. That's not your adult self talking. That's the child who never got to be a child. Real healing doesn't start with fixing, it starts with witnessing. Because until you admit what went down, you'll keep gaslighting yourself with lines like, "It wasn't that bad. Other people had it worse. I'm fine." But fine is just another mask, and you know it. So what happens when that child grows up unhealed? They become adults who don't feel safe even in calm rooms. They become partners who can't trust softness. They become givers who freeze the second someone tries to give back. They turn into people who apologize for crying, who flinch at compliments, who confuse burnout with achievement. That's the cost of growing up too damn fast. Because if your childhood trained you to be strong instead of soft, silent instead of honest, a fixer instead of a person with needs, then the adulthood you inherit is one where you're constantly holding your breath, waiting for someone to give you permission to finally break down. But here's the truth you don't want to hear. Nobody's coming. Nobody's showing up to rescue the child you buried. You have to go back. You have to take their hand. You have to say the words nobody ever said to you. You didn't deserve that. You were just a kid. It's okay to rest now. This is the beginning of shadow work. Not fixing, not performing, not shoving down the hurt under fake positivity. Shadow work means turning toward those abandoned parts of yourself and saying, "I see you, I hear you, and I'm not leaving this time." That's the repair process. And yeah, it's brutal, because it forces you to feel the grief you never got the chance to feel. It makes you sit with the rage, the heartbreak, the unmet needs. It asks you to mourn the birthdays nobody showed up for, to grieve the innocence you lost while protecting people who were supposed to protect you. And that grief you're finally feeling? That's not weakness. That's evidence you're thawing out. What used to be frozen solid is finally cracking, finally melting. That's healing in real time. Now let's break down how these survival patterns sneak into adulthood, quietly, tragically, and damn near invisible if you're not paying attention. You might turn into the unofficial therapist in every friendship circle, but never let anybody actually see you. You might get praised for being so independent, while deep down you're terrified of being a burden. You might find yourself in relationships where you're always doing the most, fixing, over-explaining, managing everything. Then wonder why resentment keeps creeping in. You might choke on boundaries because saying no still feels like betrayal. And here's the truth you don't want to hear. These aren't personality traits. They're coping strategies, learned, conditioned, and yes, fully unlearnable. But only when you stop worshipping your strength and start honoring the wounds underneath it. One of the most powerful moves you can make? Ask your inner child, what did I need back then that nobody gave me? And the answers hit hard. I needed someone to tell me it wasn't my fault. I needed someone to ask how I was, not what I could do. I needed to play, rest, laugh without worrying about somebody exploding. And little by little, you start giving those things to yourself. Not to rewrite the past, but to stop reliving it on repeat. This is how you stop searching for parents in your partners. This is how you stop confusing anxiety for intuition. This is how you stop outrunning the kid you were, and finally step into the person you're supposed to become. Carl Jung said something brutal and accurate. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And shadow work demands you face it, all of it. The neglected parts, the ashamed parts, the scared parts, the pissed off parts. Because healing isn't about creating a brand new you. Healing is remembering who you were before the world shoved its expectations down your throat. So if you're someone who had to grow up too damn fast, hear this. Your maturity was never the issue. The issue was that you never had a choice. But now you do. You can choose softness. You can choose rest. You can choose to stop babysitting everyone else's emotions and finally start honoring your own. And no, it won't flip overnight. There will be days you feel like a little kid again. Good. That's exactly the point. Let that kid come back. Let them cry. Let them be messy. Let them play. Let them be seen, finally, by you. You're not broken. You're becoming whole. And for the first time in your life, you're actually growing up the right way. Not through pressure, not through fear, but through truth. You didn't get the childhood you deserved, but you still have a future. And this time you get to write it.